I never thought my life would change in an instant. March 15, 2013, started like any other morning. I got up early, grabbed my Bible, and headed to church for morning prayer. I was thinking about my prayer list, the usual things I would bring before God, when suddenly, everything went black. A delivery truck ran a red light and crashed into my car. I didn't even feel the impact. One moment, I was driving, and the next, I was somewhere else, somewhere I can't fully explain, but I now know was more real than anything on this earth. I later found out I was clinically dead for 15 minutes. Doctor said I shouldn't have survived, but I did. And I came back with something I never expected, a message from God that I can't keep to myself. At first, I didn't even realize I had left my body. I felt light, free, as if all the weight I had carried my whole life had disappeared. There was peace, not just the kind we talk about, but a peace so deep it made me wonder if I had ever truly known peace before. I saw light, pure and alive, but it didn't hurt my eyes. It embraced me. It felt like love itself. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't questioning what was happening. I just knew I was home. I felt something pulling me forward, and as I moved, I became aware that I was not alone. There were beings of light, their presence filled with warmth and understanding. They didn't speak with words, but I understood them. Every thought, every feeling was shared instantly, like our hearts were connected. They guided me, and I followed, without hesitation, into something I could never have imagined. As I moved forward, something incredible happened. I began to see my life, but not like a memory. It was as if I was watching ripples in water, every action spreading outward. I saw moments I had completely forgotten. Every kind word, every prayer, every time I had encouraged someone, it all mattered. But I also saw the times I had hurt people with my words, the moments I had been impatient, dismissive, or selfish. Not once did I feel condemned. There was no voice accusing me. Instead, I just understood. I saw how my choices affected others in ways I had never imagined. One small act of kindness could start a chain reaction of goodness, while a careless word could leave a wound that lasted for years. It was overwhelming, yet it made perfect sense. Galatians 6-7 came to my mind. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. I had heard that verse before, but now I saw it. Then everything around me shifted, and I felt a presence so powerful I could barely stand. I knew I was before God. There are no words to fully explain what it's like to be in His presence. It was light, love, power, and holiness all at once. I felt seen in a way I'd never felt before, completely known, yet completely loved. And then He spoke. It wasn't an audible voice, but I heard it deep inside me. Do you now understand what it means to truly pray? In that moment, I realized how little I actually knew about prayer. I had spent years saying prayers, long, rehearsed, structured prayers, but had I really been communing with God? Had I been pouring out my heart, or just following a routine? I suddenly understood what Jesus meant in Matthew 6-7, when He said, "And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words." Prayer was never about saying the right things, it was about connection. Then, as if time folded in on itself, I saw prayers happening throughout history. It was like watching countless moments at once, yet I understood each one. I saw a mother kneeling beside her sick child, whispering desperate prayers through her tears. I saw a man in chains, a slave, closing his eyes and praying not for escape, but for peace. I saw a businesswoman in a high-rise office, sitting at her desk long after everyone had left, whispering a simple, broken prayer. God, are you there? None of these prayers were eloquent. They weren't polished or recited from a book, but they were real, and I could see the power flowing through them. It hit me then, prayer was never about the right words, but about the heart behind them. Every single one of those prayers, whether whispered in pain or shouted in desperation, was heard. I remembered Romans 8:26, which says, "The Spirit Himself intercedes for us through wordless groans, even when we don't know what to say. God hears the depths of our hearts." And then I saw something that shook me to my core. I was in the Garden of Gethsemane, watching Jesus pray before His crucifixion. I could feel the weight of His sorrow, the deep agony in His spirit. He wasn't just saying words, He was surrendering everything. His prayer wasn't long, but it was the most powerful prayer ever spoken. Not my will, but yours be done, Luke 20-42. In that moment, I understood something that changed me forever. True prayer is surrender. It's not about convincing God to do what we want. It's about aligning ourselves with His will, even when it's hard. Jesus didn't want to suffer, but He trusted the Father completely. And that trust changed the course of history. I felt my heart breaking as I watched, realizing how often I had prayed selfishly, treating God like a vending machine instead of a father. At that moment, I understood why God had asked me that question. Do you now understand what it means to truly pray? Prayer wasn't about how long I could speak, how perfectly I could phrase my words, or how many times I repeated a request. It was about surrender. It was about trusting God enough to let go of my own plans and fully embrace His. And then I saw something even more heartbreaking: so many believers praying out of habit, out of obligation, but not from the heart. Their lips moved, but their spirits were disconnected. Isaiah 29-13 came to mind. These people come near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. I realized how many times I had done the same. I had prayed because it was the right thing to do, but was I really drawing near to God? Then, God made it clear why I had been sent there to bring this message back. He showed me people kneeling in church pews, people bowing their heads before meals, people reciting words without even thinking about them. And then I heard His voice again, clear and undeniable. Tell them prayer is not about getting my attention. They already have it. It's about aligning themselves with my will. I felt those words deep in my soul, and I knew I had been praying for results instead of for relationship. But real prayer wasn't about convincing God to act. It was about bringing myself into a place where I could receive His will, even when it didn't make sense. 1 John 5:14 became real to me. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us. The key wasn't just asking, it was asking according to His will. Then, just as suddenly as I had arrived, I felt a pull, like I was being drawn back. I didn't want to leave. The presence of God was more real than anything I had ever known. But I understood that my time there wasn't meant to last. I had been given a mission. As I felt myself returning, I had one last question burning in my heart. I don't know if I spoke it or if God simply knew, but I asked, "Is Jesus really your son?" And in an instant, the answer came not as a voice, but as a revelation so deep it shook me. "Here's my heart given for you." My very essence poured out in love. Those words shattered every doubt I had ever carried. Jesus wasn't just a messenger or a great teacher. He was the very heart of God, sent to reconcile us. John 3:16 wasn't just a verse anymore. It was the foundation of everything. And then I woke up. I gasped for air, my body aching, doctors shouting around me. I was back in the hospital. I had been gone for 15 minutes, but in that time, everything had changed. As soon as I could speak, I knew I had to tell people what I had seen, what I had learned. Prayer isn't a ritual, it's a lifeline. It's not about getting something from God. It's about giving ourselves completely to Him. And Jesus, He isn't just part of the story, He is the story. Since that day, my mission has been clear: to help people rediscover real, honest, life-changing prayer. To remind them that God already hears them. What He's waiting for is their surrender.